Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we take a look at a creepypasta called Zelda Satanic Slumber. It's been a while since we've done a creepypasta coming out of Hyrule or Termina. And, for that, let's sit back, relax, and see what Satanic Slumber happens in The Legend of Zelda.
It had been a while since I've played The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's my favorite game of all time to this day, so I'm talking about the N64 cartridge release. I never really owned my own cartridge. I shared it with my brother, but when the Xbox console came out, he switched to Xbox Gaming. I had my own N64 and it was fire orange. My brother gave me his old Ocarina of Time cartridge and I was very happy. He said, "Keep the game, I don't play it anymore, and I don't want to sell it because I know you'll still love and play it." As soon as I held that cartridge in my hand, memories came rushing back into my mind. Like the time it took me 5 years just to learn that you could put the Master Sword back. When I didn't know what the Eye of Truth was, or the time I beat the game for the very first time, nostalgia was among me. I played the game, but I stopped playing it for a few years after a while. I was 10 years old, and decided to look in my closet for some things or collectibles that I used to have. Among searching, I found posters, a Link figure, some old clothes, and as well as shoes. But I found something that intrigued me the most. That same Ocarina of Time cartridge I played a few years back. It had a lot of dust on it, so I decided to wipe it off. I wanted to see if it still worked, so I popped it into my N64 console and watched the logo flash. The title screen popped up and I decided to watch one of the scenes that happened to be when you leave the title screen put. I began to play and noticed one of my older files. It was named ASDF-JDSK. Since I never knew how to read or care or name him, I decided to choose it and see what the hell was on it. The game was complete, with every other upgrade besides 12 Skulltulas. I saved and quit the game and decided to start a new file, named it Link. The intro cutscene started and I was in the game. I made lots of progress, some glitches happened, but I thought it was just the game conveying its age. One of the strangest ones was Link's body glitching as if I tilted the cartridge. More strangely, it did this when I went away to get something, such as a drink. I progressed and obtained the Goron's Ruby. Then I remembered that I didn't get the Sun Song. I decided to head up Death's Mountain first to get the magic meter, and hitched a ride on that annoying owl to land on the house, with the cow in it. It was night at this point, so I ventured into the graveyard. I thought I'd entered the graveyard before because I got the Hylian shield here, but the cutscene when you first come here played for some reason. I went up to the huge tombstone in the back of the graveyard, and played Zelda's Lullaby. Link's body glitched again like described earlier, and when the tombstone exploded, it didn't play a sound effect. Link didn't scream either. All that played was the glitchy noise that occurs when you mess with the cartridge. I entered the royal family tomb. Upon entering, it seemed normal. I killed the keys to unlock the door, and then a message box appeared and said one within the house of the dead. I didn't exactly remember this, since it had been forever since I touched the game. I thought it was normal and proceeded into the door. I then made an angry sigh, since I knew redheads were in this room. I walked slowly and quietly to the next area and looked back for a moment to see a red dead appear, then disappear quickly. I ignored it and read the stone, and it told me to play the Sun Song. I pressed the song's button pattern, and the cutscene played. However, when it played, it didn't turn day in the cutscene. It remained night. A text box appeared when I returned to playing it, and it read, "An alternative route is a descent into the darkness." I assumed that it meant to head back into the red dead's room. I went back into the room and played the Sun Song to freeze the Redeads and killed them for the hell of it. However, upon reaching the door, the Redead's scream happened over and over again and kept me frozen. Then a mysterious shadow-like body ran up behind Link and grabbed him, kind of like the figure in the Nocturne of Shadow cutscene. The game flickered to a black screen and it was spawned into a different tomb. There was a light fog in the room and appeared to be very eerie. Blood was on the walls, just like in the Shadow Temple in the bottom of the well. The Shadow Temple music was playing in reverse in a very low pitch. There was also pictures of a strange head being lifted from the ground. Similar to the walls in the Shadow Temple, Link didn't have any of his items or equipment, but his tunic appeared to be more desaturated green. The grave had only 4 walls and looked very similar to the royal tomb. However, there was no warp out of the grave or anything to do in it. A vibe came upon me and it felt like as if they wanted Link to die. A box of dialogue appeared and said, "Here is gathered Hyrule's bloody history of greed and hatred. An alternative route is a descent into the darkness." I could have sworn I've seen the text before. Then I felt like I was being watched. There were chains dangling from the ceiling also. as well as a twitching dead hand body on the floor, which really got me the most. I walked up to it and it said, check, and I pressed A. The text box was blank, and played a low-pitched Poe voice with an echo. Then his body disappeared. I was in the tomb for several hours trying to figure out what to do. I noticed a strange script on the wall, and all it said was, if someone with an evil mind that has his wish granted, the world will be consumed by evil. If you want to see a ferry to the other world, come here. I reluctantly went to the wall, and Link walked through it. All that was in there was the lens of truth. After receiving it, another box of dialogue appeared which said, one who gathers the Eye of Truth will be able to see what is hidden in the darkness. I equipped the lens to a C button and used it. I saw spirits of people who have died. I talked to them and they all said an alternative route is a descendant into darkness. I tried to comprehend what it was trying to tell me. The Redette scream happened, and I was spawned into the basement of the bottom of the well. Link's skin started to become pale. The Shadow Temple music played, but only the chants were heard. Poes were laughing in a low pitch in the background, along with Red Dead's moaning. I walked around the room and saw a chest placed here, which appeared to be a boss chest key. Opening it, I received a bottled Big Poe. The text underneath it said, cursed. I couldn't get rid of the Poe. All it said, this item doesn't seem to work here. One of the dead hand's hand came up and grabbed Link, and dragged him into the ground. I spawned into Dead Hand's room, but Link's hands were attached to a chain suspending from the ceiling. Link's face had a dark shadow underneath his hair, as if he were depressed. Dead Hand came out of the ground, but no music had played. The only sound that played was him moving. Along with the sounds of blades dropping, Dead Hand slowly walked towards Link, and Link looked at him with his depressed look. A text box appeared, and seemed to be Link talking. Please, hurry. It won't last long. After this, Link made the sound when he dies. Dead Hand began to attack him. Then the low-pitched Poe laugh reverberated. Link didn't make a sound. It were as if he had already been dead. Link's body then fell from the ceiling, and it was lifeless. His body was picked up from an anomalous force, and then he disappeared. The screen faded to black. I was warped into Dark Link's room within the water temple. But there was no water or doors. Instead of waters, it was just airy fog. The tree wasn't there either. The sand patch was just a pile of skulls. Link transformed into Dark Link, and he just stood there. His eyes were glowing red, and it made me feel like I was being watched. The sound that played appeared to be birds along with the dark wind. Dark Link was staying still. While the camera was slowly zooming into his blood-red eyes, his voice was deeper than Dark Link's. He laughed in a way a maniac would laugh. A text box appeared and said descent into darkness. His eyes grew, then the screen faded to black again, and for a few moments his face was back into the camera. As his eyes were glowing and dripping with blood, at the top of the screen it said cursed, in the style of the game over text. All that was heard was the background noises, the low-pitched Poe laugh, and the disturbing laugh of Dark Link. I reset the game, but it took me back to the same screen. I turned it off and on, and it still took me back to the same screen. The curse text faded. It was unknown as to why this happened to Link, but I knew it had to do something with descendants and abandonment. Or as it felt to me.
Well, that was a Zelda creepypasta, and boy oh boy, it's been a long time since we've done one of those. Seriously, I can't remember the last time we touched a Zelda creepypasta. Now, how was it? Classic. That's the word we're going to use here, classic, to say the least. Like some of the ones we did in the very beginning of the series. It starts off with a cliched game acquisition that happens really quickly and dirty, but it's sensical. You know, as many times we've seen it, it makes sense. Now, again, it could have been elaborated on a little more, but it does make sense here. We all give games and whatnot to our younger siblings or, friends. And we get, as we get newer stuff, it's like digital hand-me-downs, right? It still happens to this day. But more so important, what the game consisted of in this creepypasta, the phenomenon really tying it together, for the most part, the build-up was done fairly well, even though it still felt compressed, to say the least. Like, if this was given more breathing room, we could have seen it more fleshed out. And again, I always say fleshed out, given more build-up, and let me delve a little more deeper into what I mean. These creepypastas really have to have this perfect combination of right technicals, and most importantly of all, a purpose. They need to meld together. A reason why the stuff has to happen, why it's happening, and, just the right amount of technical scariness to really actually creep someone out. You know, something like, say, Console Me, where they had AI in the fucking system talking to you, and, you know, as cliched and, like, as weird as that may have sounded, it kind of did its technicals right over there, even though it did get, you know, much different in the end. But then again, this isn't Console Me, this is Zelda Satanic Slumber. Now, as we go on forward and forward and forward, they all have to have a reason, you know, and let's bring up Ben as an example. Of all the phenomenon that was peppered in that creepypasta, in that ARG, you know, it connected it with the real world, and it had this purpose in the grand scheme of things. It led to something, and overall, I wish I could say the same over here. And while it had some form of cohesiveness, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all that it should have been. But regardless, it was nice to read, and it was a nice throwback to the classic gaming creepypastas we all know and love. Hell, I'd love to see the crazy merchant from Mega Man the Yellow Devil while we're at it, as cringy as that would have been. In the end, though, I'd have to say for the most part, it was a return to the old gaming creepypastas, and I wish it was a little more fleshed out is all. More purpose. It's cool to have a chest and then to throw up words like cursed, but with no purpose it really doesn't hold up. And in the end, this has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and as always I'd like to ask you what you'd rate it and what you changed to make it better. This has been another episode, and if you like what you saw, then please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. This is me, Mudahar, and I am out.